Second story, I'm in National Airport not too long ago, and there's a guy, an Army guy there. I know it because his T-shirt says, Army. He's in a wheelchair. Both legs are blown off. First, I thank him for his service. I say, what happened? He says, well, wait a minute. Let me get my BlackBerry. He says, here's my Hummer. He was also in a Hummer that got hit by an IED. His guy survived. He lost his legs. I said, well, what are you doing? And I figured, I was going to get a story of a guy who's going through a horrible, terrible, grinding rehab, and he's off to go to someplace. It just happened last May. And instead he said, well, I'm going off to give a motivational speech. So what? You're going to give a what? You're going to give a motivational? Oh, yeah. So, well, when did you start doing this? He said, back in September, so I'm doing my math. 4 months after your legs get blown off, you're not sitting around feeling sorry for yourself. You give motivational speeches? I said, yeah, I was worried. And he tells me this story about some people he really cared about, and they were down and they were depressed, and they'd basically given up. So he went and gave them a pep talk. You know who they were? The New York Giants football team. Lieutenant Colonel Greg Gadsden. So I sent a note off to David Petraeus. So I just met this guy. I just want to let you know the kind of quality people you have. He sends me back a note. Gadsden, oh yeah, he's one of my guys. These are the people we have. Can you not feel a surge of joy when you hear about this? People who... These are people who went into a war knowing they could die. People have often say, Tony, you're courageous with cancer. No, I'm not. I get cancer. I deal with it. I didn't sign up for it. Greg Gadsden did. These guys have deliberately made a choice to risk it. And yet at the same time, if you look at the fact that re-enlistment rates are off the charts for many of the people in Iraq and Afghanistan, it's because they realize that they're not merely fighting, but they're planting seeds of hope. When you hear people talking about how terrible the war is going, number one, it's turned around. The surge works, whether Nancy Pelosi is going to accept it or not. The Iraqi people are, and they're getting it. They're leading the fight themselves. But the other thing that's happening is that the rest of the world is starting to realize as the United States stands fast and finishes the job, we will have made a mockery of Al-Qaeda. They will have slain women and children. They will have terrorized villages. They will have blown up gasoline pipelines. They will have blown up electricity transmission facilities. They will have polluted water. They will have killed livestock. They will have done all of these things. And through it all, the people said, we're going to persist because we want to be free. We want to be like the Americans. And the legacy we can leave there is not one of despair, but in fact hope. Those are the kind of people we have. Now let me make a little shift here. As we talk about our own lives, most of us are not going to be fighting in Iraq. Instead, most of us now have to find our way at a time when there is a national call for faith, because we're still a nation where the faith is deep and it is strong and it is a wonderful thing. But now it is up to us to go ahead and encourage that desire of people to do the right thing and to provide encouragement for those who may be told, if you're talking about your faith, you're a weirdo. If you believe in the sanctity of marriage, you're a bigot. No. Provide encouragement, provide testimony. Let me tell you the great thing about being a Christian. The great thing about being a Christian is it leaves you perfectly free to do the craziest things on the face of the earth. It really does. There is nothing more exciting or adventurous, because you take your fate out of your own hands and you put it in the hands of God. You never know where you're going. It's like that bike ride with the president. Only in this case, no handlebars. That's what it is. To live a life of a Christian is one in which you are able to realize that we were all put on this earth to make the most of every glorious moment and to share it in a way that will inspire joy and creativity and ambition, that will create an industrious people who want to do everything they can to improve their lives and will make all sorts of crazy, daring products, who will do all sorts of stuff that completely beggars the imagination. Whatever happened to the America that just 40 years ago was going to the moon, where we would dare to go into the heavens and do stuff that seemed crazy and daring, and yet we did it? What happened to the America that was full of confidence, that built great gleaming cities? Okay, you got your own great gleaming city, but think of some of the other places that are going to seed. What happened to that America where we took pride in what we could do and said, we are going to be the best? What happened to that? We've given it up. We have given ourselves up to sort of complaining about little things rather than looking forward to big things. As a Christian, I love reading Acts and the epistles. You think about it. One day you got the apostles, and they're sitting around, and Jesus leaves, and they're going, what do we do now? Then in some ways, they're sort of like Monty Python figures. They're bumping into each other, and and then all of a sudden the Holy Spirit comes through the room, and whammo, they're going everywhere. These guys are heading off to every place. They're evangelizing, they're testifying, and some are getting martyred, and they changed the world, didn't they? Let that light shine in your life, whatever your cause may be. Don't hide your light under a bushel. This is a time for us to stand up for things that we care about. Stand up for judges who are going to believe in the sanctity of life. But do it in a way that also makes it appealing to people to join you. Don't simply do it by telling the horrors of the other side, but talk about the joys and the goodness of the things that you have to offer. Because what we have to offer is the gift and the love of freedom, which is a way of saying we love you. We believe in you. We sell ourselves short when we do anything less. You know, the problem with politics right now is the politicians are misunderestimating the American people, especially in Washington. There's a notion that somehow we shouldn't be challenging people. What's missing, if you want unity, you know, I love Barack Obama. He's for hope and change. Really? You're for hope? Wow. Quick show of hands. How many people here are opposed to hope? You know, but he understands something. We want two things. We want the sense of optimism, and we want unity. What he doesn't understand is that what unifies us is a great big goal. And the goal, once again, is to rekindle that spirit of September 12th. To unite Americans, not merely in fighting against a great evil, but pursuing a great good. This is what we're talking about tonight. Pursue the great good. Always understanding that the challenges are there. But take time to be with each other and encourage each other. Look at your husbands or your wives or your children and remember what it's all about and do it with a smile on your face so you realize, as the apostles did, as those making their way out to Damascus or the farthest corners of the world, crazy old Paul, getting chased out of cities and getting shipwrecked and all that. I love these stories. But the fact is, these were not a lot of guys who sneered, oh yeah, from time to time they would lecture. But you got to imagine they're pretty happy warriors. We can learn a lot from that. Because American politics these days has been spoiled, at least in Washington, D.C., by a sense of partisanship that's really unsustainable. You should be able to disagree with people and like them. That's why I'm at CNN. But you know, we've lost that. So what I'm here to tell you is we live in extraordinary times. We live in a time that calls for the United States once again to demonstrate its greatness, not merely by finishing a job in an unpleasant war. And by the way, the president realizes that he will be unpopular through the end of this administration because people hate war, and they should. He gets the blame for that. Over time, we will find out what the fruits of our labors have been in Iraq and elsewhere. But we have to realize that, again, this is a country that is hungry to do good. And if you build the message, they will come.